Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We are excited to be with you today and appreciate your carving out some time for us today out of your busy schedules to have this conversation with us about the benefits of implementing an e-procurement solution and improving your overall procurement process. I'm going to go through a little bit of a introduction of our panelists today. We've got with us Dana Teasley, the Vice President and CFO and General Counsel from Geo Academies. We also have Tate Anderson with us from XSED. He is the Executive Vice President of XSED. And I'd also like to recognize Michelle Hintz and part of Amazon Business. She will be helping to support and to monitor and flag questions from any of the participants as we go through the panel discussion, along with her colleague, Emily Tudor. And as Patty indicated, my name is Charles Wright. I am the Vice President of SpinBridge Advisory Services. And there are a couple of folks on the call as well. My colleague, Tom Jackson, who is the president of SpinBridge, who will be supporting as well as we move through this. So what I wanted to do first is lay a little bit of a foundation for the discussion today, and then we'll get right into the questions. And I think it's good for us to focus on kind of what is source to pay when we talk about an overall procurement process. Why is it important to your charter organization? And then really getting into kind of the nuts and bolts of what it looks like when implemented in real life solutions and real life situations and scenarios. And so when we talk about source to pay very quickly, we're really talking about the complete process that starts with finding a vendor all the way through negotiating, contracting with that vendor, up to finally paying that vendor for whatever goods and services you've received from them. And the overall process, right? The optimizing of that process has to be a strategic and intentional effort that ties all of those elements together. When that's done well and it's done intentionally from a strategic perspective, it actually helps to save your charter organization both time and money when all of these elements are linked together and optimized to provide the ultimate impact to the bottom line and to the resources within the organization. And when we talk about having a source to pay strategy, when we really think about having a strategic plan that's intentional, it's helping to accomplish three things. It serves as a tool to help kind of those within the organization understand the overall structure of the source to pay function that is delivering the service or the function to the organization. It also serves as a guide to chart the desired direction of the source to pay function within the organization. And then finally, and maybe even most importantly, it becomes a framework for facilitating growth and success for your charter organization. And these three things, a tool, a guide, and a framework, really are the pillars of your plan from a strategic perspective for your source to pay function within the organization. Now, with that kind of as our background and foundation, we're going to move now into the panel discussion, which is really the meat of the dialogue here, and get into a few questions that will allow Dana and Tate to share their insights, their experience, and their learnings with the rest of us. So let's go ahead and get started here. And the first question that we have is, why did you implement an e-procurement solution? Namely, what was the problem you were trying to solve? What were the consequences of that to the organization? And then how did your e-procurement solution help to address those problems? It looks like Tate, you may be off mute right now. So if you would like to go first, you can definitely answer this. And then Dana, feel free to chime in at the conclusion of Tate's answer.
Sure, Charles. And maybe just a quick background on XSED to give some context and for what the operating environment that we were in when we chose to implement an e-procurement solution. XSED is a nonprofit organization. We're based in Los Angeles, have an office in San Diego, and we're a back office provider that works with about 65 different charter organizations. And we provide accounting and accounts payable services. And we implemented SpinBridge or e-procurement solution roughly 10 years ago. And at that time, or prior to implementing that solution, we had a very paper-based process. So our clients would do both their purchasing, they would do manual purchase orders. When the purchase came in, they would get the packing list, and then they get the invoice. They would kind of physically sign that invoice, and then they would mail that package to XED, and we would get that package, enter that information into our accounting system, and then pay that invoice on behalf of our clients. So it was very time-consuming process, very limited visibility into the process. If the mail got lost, I mean, that was we would lose those invoices. And so we were looking for a solution that would be cloud-based, that would allow us to have an electronic approval process, both for purchase orders as well as for invoices, that facilitated routing, whether that invoice or that purchase order needed to be routed just to the school leader or a board member for approval. Having that electronic process would facilitate that no matter where those individuals were located. And I think we also were very interested in moving spend or helping our clients reduce their amount of spend that was either through teacher reimbursements or was for spend that was on credit cards. Oftentimes that spend wasn't in compliance with the school's fiscal policies. It was difficult or not easy for our clients to keep track of all of those receipts. And so moving to an e-procurement platform allowed us to help our clients move reduce the proportion of their spend that went through those channels and went through a standard purchase order approval process, and then the standard kind of invoice with net 30 days. So, I mean, there's a number of reasons, but in short, really just getting out of a paper-based environment into an electronic environment, really with the goal of increasing efficiency.
Excellent, thank you. Dana, would you mind commenting on kind of the solution that you were looking for from an e-procurement implementation within Geo Academies?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me today. Yeah, the e-procurement, just like I could actually just pretty much mimic everything that Tate just said. He was exactly right. We also jumped in about 10 years ago. Geo Academies, we have our own academic and financial and operational models that schools license from us. They basically offer, they operate the Geo Academies model. Part of that model is trying to keep all of the administrative stuff off of our school leaders so that they can be the best academic leaders that they can be, which means we don't need principals diving in and school leaders and getting all tangled up in business and budgets and paperwork and all of that. Well, about 10 years ago, Geo was a lot smaller. We currently have about 8 schools, about 4,000 students, and we're in 2 different states, 3 different geographic regions. Well, 10 years ago, we were a lot smaller. We had about 3 schools, and we were okay managing that paper process. But what was happening was there was no way to pull in compliance with budget, which I think Tate mentioned as well. We would just have school leaders go, well, I want this curriculum. I'm going to go get this amount of office supplies. I need to go do a pizza party for all of my students. And that was all fine. But then, we'd find out about it later as the invoice came in. And then all of a sudden it was just impossible to really track compliance and keep everybody in line fiscally. So as we grew, we realized we really needed something that was going to be cloud-based, that was going to put permissions in and approvals that would kind of put the guardrails up on what people could spend at the school level and still stay in compliance with the budget that had been set and approved by the board. And so that's what we did. And it really was a game changer for us. We were able to corral all of the random spending. Everybody was able to see how the spending all fit together. In the business world, of course, we all know purchase orders. We kind of jokingly started calling it, this is more of a permission to order, because we use the site for everything from getting permission to do that pizza party, because then once that was done, we were able to track it through the accounting system a heck of a lot easier, to permissions with vendors and the larger purchases that you think of a PO system for. But we use it absolutely for everything, and it was a game changer for us.
Excellent, Dana. Thank you for that, and Tate as well. And what it sounds like is at the core for both of you guys was an element of compliance and trying to get your arms around some rogue spend, where you had some different building autonomy, spending and purchasing certain goods and items from different vendors. And Dana, you kind of touched on it, so I might tee you up for this next question. If you could kind of keep talking a little bit about some of the efficiencies that your organization has gained from this effort. So we understand kind of the backdrop of the problem and the challenge, but then what were some of the maybe expected benefits, but maybe even some of the unexpected benefits that you received?
That's a really good question. Like all of the folks on this call, I am a business person. And, one of the things we learn is variation is the key to inefficiency. And that's really what we were having happen was, when everybody was following a different type of process, it took 3 times the staff amounts from the business office and accounting side to track it all down backwards and make it all line up. And so what we realized with this solution was it was one-stop shopping. There was one point of entry into the business and accounting system, and then it would follow with invoices, approvals first, then invoices, and then payment. And so it streamlined everything and saved a huge amount of staff time and miscommunication from running around going, wait, did you approve this? Who did this? Who ordered that? Who's got this? Well, we could see it. And that really cut down on a lot of the inefficiencies. And it also at the end point, of course, is accurate accounting and all of those grants and things like that we're all responsible for doing at the end of the year. And for us, it enabled us to really start the process with accuracy so that we ended it with accuracy. And that also was a game changer for us. We do still have folks that go rogue. There are still, sometimes you've got an emergency pop up, something is on fire, a plumbing pipe breaks and somebody's got to call somebody in, and nobody's got time to run through the system for that, and we get that. But for the most part, the system has really reduced a lot of those rogue invoices and those rogue purchases. We do still kind of have them on occasion. No system is perfect. Anything run by human beings, we're always going to drop something, but it makes it easier to identify the rogue pieces, because then you can pull it up and go, oh wait, this isn't in the system, what was happening here? And then you can have that conversation with the folks that did it going, hey, this is kind of not how we do it, and this is why. So it also really helps you identify where things are off, in as much as it does identify what's in the system.
Excellent. Thank you, Dana. Tate?
Yeah, I think Dana and I can go back and forth building off of each other. I want to emphasize what Dana was mentioning in terms of visibility. It's really nice, or it's really powerful, I should say, once your process is in an electronic format. So you can see, has an invoice been submitted? Whose approval is it pending? Has a purchase request been made? Or even going back in time, what invoices have we processed for this vendor? Or if a vendor, like one of our clients' common challenges, if they're struggling with their kind of accounts payable processes, where is the process going awry? Are invoices not getting uploaded to SpendBridge? Are invoices not getting approved? What's the issue? And we have visibility to that entire process now, and so we can identify the problem, maybe retrain some individuals, or talk about the importance of certain activities, or adjust processes as needed. But with a cloud-based system, everyone has visibility, both the clients as well as us, to that accounts payable process. Some of the other efficiencies that I would probably just highlight is for any organization that has distributed workforce, which everyone probably did during the pandemic when people had to work remotely, or even pre or post the pandemic, even if you're in a physical environment now. We've seen, staff members are working at different times and are in different locations. So having a cloud-based system where we accommodate when those individuals want to work, where they want to work, they can access the information, they can see it. They're not tied to a physical location. So definitely during the pandemic, it made it much more of a seamless transition when we had to work remote than our old paper-based process.
Excellent. Yeah, this is really good. I appreciate you guys' insight and just kind of going deep into kind of the tension sometimes between the hard costs and the soft costs. A lot of times people think about purchasing procurement and they only think about the hard cost, which is just kind of the price of the goods and the services, but the accessibility, the streamlining of the work, a lot of those soft costs that are embedded in just folks doing the process and managing the process are some good areas to recognize those efficiencies. Let's kind of keep pushing at this a little bit and talk now about some of the benefits that you were able to see when you implemented a vendor marketplace. For those that may or may not be familiar with the vendor marketplace, Tate and Dana, you can definitely give your kind of take on what that looks like for your organizations in general. It is a kind of an environment within the SpendBridge application where all the vendors that are approved are listed, and your stakeholders within the organization can go to kind of a one-stop place to shop from a list of already approved vendors and their catalogs or punch-out sites. So Tate, we'll start off with you. We're kind of alternating here. Tell us a little bit about how implementing that vendor marketplace has driven compliance within your organization.
Yeah, so since we're a back office provider, we're not dictating where or how a school needs to spend their money. That being said, we want to give them opportunities to leverage and take advantage of the SpendBridge marketplace. And so what we've done is identify commonly used like categories that are commonly used for by our charter schools, and then identify vendors within those categories that are commonly used, so that we make it an efficient, easy process for our clients if they want to use those vendors. So we have vendors in school supplies, office supplies, technology, custodial services. I think are probably, and then maintenance and repair. And what we've done is identify a vendor or multiple vendors in each one of those categories. We have leveraged group purchasing arrangements that are available to public schools that offer discounted pricing to public schools. And so we hope, or we expect, that our clients can benefit in a couple of different ways. Number one, they can benefit from that discounted pricing. And we're leveraging, we're piggybacking on those group purchasing arrangements. But then in addition, they can leverage the kind of the soft costs or the efficiencies by buying from those vendors. The purchase approval process is embedded into is basically embedded into the shopping experience. So, for example, we have Amazon as one of our vendors. The shopping experience for a user at a school site, they basically go to the SpendBridge site and then they punch out to Amazon, and it's the exact same shopping experience that they would have if they were buying from just going to Amazon directly. So it's easy. Like, our users are, everyone's familiar with how to buy from Amazon or an online service, but we just make that they can do that, and then once they're ready to buy those goods, instead of the order being placed immediately, it just kicks off for the approval process to ensure that the necessary approvals are secured before those orders are made. And now the nice thing is those vendors are creating, many of them have electronic invoicing. So if you've done the purchase through SpendBridge to a punch out, those vendors are sending those invoices, and they're automatically coming back into SpendBridge. They're getting paired against that purchase order. And so it's just reducing more of the manual work that our schools need to do, and they can focus on other higher level activities.
Yeah, thank you, Tate. Dana, would you share some of the benefits you've seen from the vendor marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because your question is how does it drive compliance? But I think Tate picked up on exactly where I would go as well. It's not just compliance. The key to vendor marketplace is efficiency. And Tate used that several times, and I completely agree. For a lot of reasons, it's efficiency at the school level. They don't have to waste time going, who do I go to? What do I do? How do I get this set up? Right? It's already there. They just walk in and they know we already have those relationships and they're successful relationships. And we can encourage them to hit those vendors up, and which is great. And then everything's in the system and nobody's spending time recreating the wheel. And then of course, as Tate was also saying, once you're in that system, it just drives all the way down the line and everything is already in place. So that piece is really great. Also allows you to do the leveraging. Like I said, we've got several schools in different places. Well, individual schools aren't going to be able to do a bulk purchase, but if we can say, hey, we need to do a massive technology buy across 600 people, it's completely different. And the schools have the opportunity to leverage those larger numbers, which is also great. But the question on compliance, I think, is also really interesting because it really allows us to stop folks from just going out and picking up vendors that are overcharging, or, hey, this is my cousin and they have this business and I just, we can't do that. I mean, maybe your cousin does have a good product and we'll take a look, but you can't just go out of the system and pick off who you want. And so from a compliance standpoint, it has really helped us kind of make sure we're with approved vendors, audit trail will clear, those types of things. Just so much to it. It's just really been a great solution.
Excellent. Yeah, and Dana, to echo your point, I do appreciate the distinction that you and Tate are making kind of between compliance and the efficiency of the vendor marketplace. And I think that's good for us to kind of keep in mind that most times, in the work that we've done at SpinBridge, most people are in a non-compliant kind of situation, not because they're just wanting to break rules, but because things aren't as easy. It's not quite as clear. It's not evident who the approved vendors are, or maybe what the approved process is. And so what they're just doing is trying to solve problems that they're, facing every day, and they're just solving it the best way that they know how. And so I appreciate that distinction of, yes, it drives compliance, but here's kind of why it drives compliance, because it's efficient, it's easy, it's accessible, it's very clear cut, it's not ambiguous as to who you can purchase from and not. And then on the back end, you get the invoices coming back into the system, you get the two-way matching, whatever your organization is looking for, which then again attacks those soft costs. Let's deep dive a little bit more into the vendor marketplace and talk specifically about kind of your organization's experience with Amazon Business kind of being a part of that marketplace. How have they enhanced that marketplace for your organization across all of those elements that we've been talking about up until this point?
Whose turn is it now?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I think it's Dana's
I guess it's my turn.
I think it's Dana's. That's
fair.
right.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it's my turn, but you were doing so good. Yeah, so the Amazon partnership has really also just been fantastic for us. I mean, I hate to sound like an ad, but I will. Let's just face it, Amazon has everything. I mean, there's not a whole lot that our teachers and our leaders need to order, whether it's paper, classroom supplies, all kinds of different things. So they've really been able to access Amazon. And again, we've had that leveraged purchasing, which has just been great. And then even better, I mean, it's silly, but Amazon delivers. So our staff isn't wasting time going to the store, picking it up. It's just as convenient as we all use at home. And it's just been fantastic for our staff to have super easy access to that. Charles, I appreciated what you said earlier. People want to do the right thing. They want to be compliant if we just give them easy routes to follow. And giving them Amazon has been a really easy route because they're like, great, one-stop shopping. I can get everything I need. It's going to show up. And so they're happy to do that. And then from my end and from my business team's end, we're happy because we've got an approved vendor. We've got clear channels of approval. We can easily track invoices. We can easily pay invoices. We can easily allocate against grants, whatever we need to do. So again, entry point to exit, it's just been super efficient for us.
Yeah, I would agree with Dana. Amazon, you kind of just, before we had Amazon on the marketplace, I mean, they were still buying from Amazon with just different channels. So it's been just critical and super valuable to have Amazon as just one of the vendors that's within the marketplace. And we have our we have vendors in individual categories, but as Dana mentioned, Amazon kind of crosses or is in all the categories. So it's from our side, like in that we're not dictating which vendors a client needs to use. It also helps ensure there's some competition there with the vendors. If you don't like this vendor, you can go to another vendor within the marketplace. But it's definitely one of it's probably in terms of volume of purchases the most frequently used vendor, and everyone's familiar with how to do the shopping experience. And then on the administrative side, the back end, like you have visibility to orders, visibility to invoices. They offer the electronic invoicing, so it's been really helpful to our clients as well as to XED. And then I think it's been critical in terms of giving users or staff at a school site an alternative. Instead of going and buying it on their credit card or as a teacher reimbursement, they can just do it through the site and not have to worry about that reimbursement or keeping track of that receipt for their credit card.
Excellent. Thank you both for that. We're coming to the final question for the kind of the formal part of the panel discussion. And this one really is with the benefit of, and you both mentioned you've had SpinBridge kind of in practice for about 10 years. But if you look back, right, hindsight is always 20/20. If you think about kind of where you were as you were moving into the implementation, and then even the things that you've learned since then, what kind of hints or insights would you share with anybody who is thinking about moving forward with an e-procurement implementation project? And Tate, as luck would have it, it's your turn.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I think SpendBridge, some of the tips that I would have if I was another organization implementing it, I think the change, depending on the change management is critical. And it depends probably what system or what environment you are changing from. But a couple things that I think are important from change management. Number one, I would think about having probably two key individuals that are kind of champions for the project. Number one, someone that's more at an executive level that can help kind of communicate why this is important, and ensure the help facilitate people adopting that new solution. But I would also identify someone either within the procurement team or within the accounting team or both, depending on what kind of components of SpendBridge you're using, that are going to dig in and become a power user on SpendBridge. Someone that new staff or staff members can go to if they have a technical question, someone that can develop documentation as to how to use the system. Because with any system, you're going to have staff members that are at varying degrees of technical capability, like in comfort level. And so one of the things that we've been doing, we didn't do as a good a job at the front end, but we do a much better job now is having a library of process materials on how to do X, Y, Z. And it's not hundreds of process guides. It's like 5 or 10 of the commonly done activities, like how to do them. It's a reference that someone new or someone that needs some more support, they can go to, and it shows them how to do something. I think was really important. And then depending on like what you are looking at implementing with SpendBridge, if you can pilot something with a group of users, give those power users a chance to make sure they've understand the system, become comfortable with it, learn about some of the commonly used questions that come up from the staff that are in that pilot group, and then roll it out. But those would be some of the key thoughts. I might have a few more, but I'll let Dana add, share some of her thoughts, and then I can add some more.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. But I'll tell you, if I could go back, the one thing I think I would do better is exactly what Tate mentioned, which is develop those kind of mini user manuals. I don't know that we've done a good enough job doing that, and it's something we do continue to work on. But if I had to go back, the best hints I would be is, if you think about it, this type of system touches a whole bunch of people touch it, whether it's the office manager at the front end, your school leader at the front end, all the way through your AP people, your procurement people, your final accounting people. And so what I would probably do is I would invite all of your stakeholders that are going to use it, a representative from each of those groups. And we all know in those departments, who those opinion leaders are, who are the ones that you've got a lead office manager, you've got a lead school leader that everybody else really kind of trusts. And so I would bring in those opinion leaders and bring everybody in and give them the opportunity to evaluate whether it's a spend bridge or something else. Look at several different ones and make sure it's going to be what works for you and works for your system and works for every user all along the chain. Because if at any point the system you implement doesn't work for any one of those groups, it's going to crack. So get everybody together, and then once you've got that buy-in early on, then you can start diving in, and it goes a heck of a lot faster and easier.
Yeah, no, one thing that resonated with those comments for me is that idea of the change management is not just escorting the project through to completion, but even the adoption of the project through the organization. And Dana, you raised a very good point. I don't think there is any other system within an organization that almost every department or function touches than an e-procurement system. HRIS systems are relegated to their people, and school information systems are relegated to academics, but everybody needs to buy something or have somebody come do something for their functional area within an organization. And so again, kind of hearkening back to the strategic and the intentional piece of it, fitting all those together, pulling a lot of those stakeholders together to understand, to get that buy-in is huge, and that change management is invaluable as you're looking at how do you drive a fundamental shift. Tate, I think both of you guys mentioned that you were doing it paper-wise before, and now you're shifting to another platform. Tate, did you have any other comments you wanted to add on to the helpful hints?
I mean, the other one that I was just, thinking about is when we implemented SpendBridge came with some additional functionality or additional abilities to monitor things, one of which was like packing lists. And one of the things that I think has been interesting to observe was that packing lists were not something that we required our clients to submit. Like, we were really focused on prior approval for purchases and then approvals for the invoices. And then they could monitor packing lists themselves. And when so our clients weren't, I think we implemented the requirement that packing lists were a new, like a required item that needed to be submitted. And I think in some ways that slowed adoption for the purchase using SpendBridge for procurement with some of our clients. So I would just think about like thinking about your strategy. You want to ensure adoption. You want to make it easy for people to adopt the system. And I would just be like, in the hindsight, like if I were to do it over, I would think more about, is that something that we needed to implement? It wasn't a requirement that we had, and it may have distracted some from our focus, which was on ensuring prior approval before the purchase was made and ensuring invoices were getting in a timely fashion, and not add items that would provide or present new hurdles to adoption. So this is something each organization I would think about as you're looking at the system, what features that you're going to be turning on, and thinking about those implications, both for new functionality, maybe that is something that you want, but also how are your users going to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tate. As I mentioned before, this is the last question, and Tate, that kind of is a good summary of kind of what you've experienced. Dana, I don't want to leave without giving you an opportunity if there was any closing comments you may have had before we transition to Michelle and reading some of the questions that have been submitted by the participants today.
Yeah, nothing really to add at this point. I look forward to seeing what the participants are thinking and what's on their mind. I think the only piece I would point out is, I don't know if anybody's really observed, this is the type of solution that works for any size organization. So, like I said, Geo started implementing it when we were at about 3 schools, and that was probably 2 schools too late. We're now at 8, and XEd, it's they're running 65 clients. So it really does work whether you're a large organization or just a small school. It's just makes life easier.
Thank you, Dana. Michelle, I'll turn it over to you for any questions submitted through the chat.
Yeah, thank you all for that insightful panel discussion. We did have a few questions that came through. A lot of questions around just kind of the change management that you guys were talking about earlier, mostly around the timeline that you would expect to implement something like this. I know you guys discussed doing a pilot and getting with all of the teams to kind of outline what you would be needing within the system and how it should be implemented. So any, I don't know, ideas around how long it takes to implement something like this and to make it successful?
I mean, I've only
Tate,
done it
you want to
once.
pick that up?
I don't, we've only done it once, and I mean, we did implement it across 65 of our clients. So we did it, the way we did it is we implemented client by client. And so that took us a while, but in terms of just getting the setup correct, I mean, it probably varies by the size of the organization, but I think maybe 1 to 2 months, or I mean, Charles and Tom may have some other comments on this, but a few months for the design and thinking through getting the workflow set up and just looking at that process. And then if you pilot it for a month or 2, maybe 1 to 3 months, just depending again on the size. You do want to have, like any of the implementations that we've done with any software, having some time to see what issues come up or what unique scenarios can come up. You just need a little bit of time to get that visibility. During that time period, you could be developing the documentation on how you want your organization to be using SpendBridge, the specific organization specific instructions that you want your staff to follow. And then I think it's at that point, it's a matter of deciding when to turn it on for all the other users. But that would be my high level thoughts. I don't know if Dana, you might have some more insight there for how you guys implemented it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you could probably do this in just a few months to get it started. What I might advise folks to think about is the level of implementation. I think it's possible to start small, and like you had observed, like just get the approval in place, and then you can add the vendor marketplace later or something along those lines. But you can implement it in stages as people get comfortable with it. That's one piece of advice I would give. And then the other piece, and y'all are going to laugh, but you're also going to get it. Don't do it during audit season. Don't make your life hell. So check the timing of when you're going to try to flip a whole new system. Don't do it at the beginning of school. Don't do it August, September, October. Don't do it in the middle of audit season. January and February, things are nice and quiet. It's before you start wrapping up for the end of the year. Maybe that's a good time. I don't know. Just my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah.
Thanks. And kind of a follow-up to that question, we talked a lot about getting the buyers onto the system and working through that new process, but there's some questions around the vendor onboarding. So you said, get the timing right, make sure that things are lining up to kind of a downtime for you all. But would you suggest getting all vendors on at the same time? Are there some that were easier to work with, were difficult? Like, what did that look like building out the marketplace?
I am going to abdicate that question over to Tate because I don't work with the vendor onboarding as much, and he may have better experience. Sorry, putting you on the spot, but maybe you might be better at that than me.
Yeah, so we have roughly 8 to 10 vendors in the marketplace. I mean, the nice thing is SpendBridge has relationships now with many like commonly used vendors. So if you want to turn on Amazon, like they already have that relationship, they already have that connection. It's just a matter of tailoring it for your particular organization. So I think they can do that relatively quickly. But what we do is we do two things. We have vendors that are in the marketplace, and then SpendBridge also has the functionality where you can buy what they call off catalog. So you can create purchase orders for any vendor. It's just not through a punch out or a hosted catalog, but you can create a purchase order for any vendor, even whether they're in the marketplace or not. So I think it's, I mean, I've also found that with any of the vendors that are in the marketplace, there's some maintenance and some management of that activity, whether it's setting it up, electronic invoice, set it up for like the different components. So I think you want to be strategic about how many vendors that are in the marketplace. And it's also an opportunity for you to drive spend to vendors that like they have better pricing, or they're the vendors that you want your staff members to be using.
Excellent. And kind of a follow-up question to that, around thinking backwards after you've implemented this, you've onboarded the vendors, you're trying to drive this compliance and get people into the system. What data or information have you been able to look at to make more informed decisions around compliance spend or vendors that you want to continue relationships with or increase spend in, just based on the financials that you're seeing on your buyers' behavior through this purchasing process?
I mean, I would say, one thing that, kind of similar to the last question, we do get questions from our clients or requests from our clients about adding vendors to the marketplace. So it's something that like I look at. I'll look at the spend for those vendors, like how many of our clients use that vendor. If it's only a few, we may not add it. We're in a little bit of different setting than if you're a standalone organization. You'd have that, like you're looking at the vendors that you're prioritizing for your organization. I'm looking at prioritizing the vendors that are used across our portfolio of clients. I think it's the same kind of analysis, but we definitely look at spend by vendor, and kind of informing what we do. We've added, like a few years ago, we added a custodial and janitorial supplies vendor because we were seeing a lot of spend there across a number of different vendors. And so we identified a vendor and added that to the marketplace to facilitate our clients from making it easier for them to buy custodial and janitorial supplies.
Yeah, and from our end, I think we're a little bit smaller, so I don't know that we do that level of vendor analysis necessarily. From our perspective, it's been more about where can we corral costs and keep folks within a spend limit to begin with. And that's where it's been really helpful, and having vendors that we have already vetted and know their pricing, that's on an individual basis. That's where the vendor piece has been really helpful for us.
Awesome. And I think we had one more come through. So for a small school with small staff, this process can seem overwhelming. I like the idea of separating it by steps. But do you need to be tech savvy to do this type of system setup?
I would say absolutely not at all. You guys have probably seen the same thing, but from our end, like I said, people like to be compliant, and the system's really easy to use, and it gets people what they need when they need it, and it's not any harder to use than just going on a website, I think. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I would say the purchasing side, I think, is it's just like shopping, like going into any site, and then the approval process. the people that need to approve, they can approve from their email, they can approve from the SpendBridge website. So I think that's easy. Likewise for the invoice processing. I think the one part though, if you do the invoice, you need to think about how you get the data from SpendBridge into your accounting system. For many years we did a download upload, and that was I think a pretty easy process. You just need someone that can SpendBridge can generate the file however you need it. It's just you need someone that knows how to import that file into your accounting system. But I would expect the importing into accounting system is something that you can gain efficiency. So many people or organization might have someone already on staff that knows how to do that. And then we're working with SpendBridge right now to integrate directly the feed from SpendBridge into our accounting system. So we don't need to do that manual download upload. And I know they've done that with other accounting systems. So they may be able to do that even better, just depending on which system you're using.
Awesome. Any other questions from the audience? I don't see any coming through right now. So I guess I'll turn it over to the panelists. Any last thoughts or tidbits you want to leave the audience with before we head off?
Tate, you want to flip a coin? You go first.
Okay, I'll have two. One is just Dana had mentioned audit. And actually, so one other soft efficiency gain that we have with SpendBridge is when our auditor or when our clients' auditors come, we just give them access to SpendBridge. So they don't have to ask our staff to pull backup for the purchases. We just give them access, and they can go and pull that directly for themselves, which saves a bunch of time for our staff during audit. So that's just another soft benefit. And then my other high level comment would be is with an electronic process, I have found we can keep getting it better and better and better. So over the 10 years, we keep just improving upon it. Whereas with the paper-based process that we had before, there's only so much you could really optimize that paper-based process. And so it's nice to be able to continue to improve the process, provide a better experience to users, address issues that we're seeing, or enhancing our solution, which SpendBridge has kind of grown with us as well as we've grown with SpendBridge. So it's been a really good partnership.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo all of that. Once again, I really appreciate it. It's for our end as well. We've kind of done the same growth with SpendBridge, and when we started with them 10 years ago, they were just getting started themselves, and what they provided was fantastic. But as they've grown, as we've grown, we've been able to add more pieces in. They've been able to be more responsive. I appreciate the fact that both SpendBridge and the Amazon Marketplace are recognizing that charter schools have their own systems and their own issues. I mean, every area does, of course, but they've been incredibly responsive to what those needs are. And it's been fun watching that growth as well as they grew alongside of us, and they've been a great partner. And change is inevitable. If you're not changing, you're going backwards. And I like how Tate said, we can't approve paper. And if anything, it's just going to get worse, particularly if you're looking at growth or anything along those lines. From our end, it really allowed us to streamline things. Yes, change is hard. Implementation is hard. It's no fun. It's an incredibly painful process, whether it's something like this or switching your accounting systems, whatever. But at some point, it needs to be done, and you just grit your teeth and get through it. And it is a heck of a lot easier, more efficient, more transparent, far less headaches when you get through on the other side. It's completely worth it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for your time today. Thank you for the attendees joining us. We will be sending out this information as post call, and we hope that you guys have a good holiday season that's coming up. So thanks everyone for joining us.